Tammy near Bermuda, and more East Pacific action on the way on tonight's Tropical Weather Bulletin. And now the latest around the wide world of tropics. Tropical Weather Bulletin for October 28th. So Tammy is the only system standing after the last week or so, and it's been an incredible week leading up to this, of course, with 5 rapidly intensifying storms, Tammy being one of them. It's now in its second phase as a tropical cyclone according to the National Hurricane Center, and we're code blue. So Tammy is swirling not far from Bermuda right now, but still no tropical storm warnings in effect on day 150 of hurricane season. We're also watching another area of interest that currently has a low chance, but mainly due to the long range, in the Caribbean Sea. Now that could be something to watch closely as we enter next week. In the Eastern Pacific, we've still got 2 areas of interest here. One of them a very high chance there that's off the coast of Central America and southern Mexico, and that could rebound back towards the northeast and strike somewhere along that coast, and a 40% chance for a small system that won't last very long out at sea. In the Western Pacific, we're starting to see signs with these 2 areas of interest now. Low chances at the moment, but those chances are likely to increase gradually as the days go by, and next week could be the time for those to form. In the North Indian Ocean, we've got nothing active now. Of course, we had 2 cyclones not long ago, both of them rapidly intensified, had a spell doing that, but nothing active right now and nothing to watch, at least in the next 7 days, not that we can see at any point anyway. And in the southern hemisphere, we've still got the remnants of Lola visible, and it's likely to transform into a substantial extratropical cyclone, which will affect New Zealand, particularly the North Island of New Zealand, in the next few days, by the time we get to the end of the weekend. Well, let's take a look at Tammy, the only active tropical cyclone. It's just 323 kilometers east of Bermuda, 1248 from Nantucket, 1327 from Yarmouth, Nova Scotia, 1362 from Halifax, and 1809 from St. John's, Newfoundland. Currently, estimated winds are around 60 to 65 miles per hour, and a pressure estimate around 991 millibars. It looks like it is dwindling and is expected to shoot towards the east and then southeast on that National Hurricane Center's cone and die off fairly soon. Let's take a look at satellite imagery then. There it is actually, that's Tammy, and you can see that wind shear is starting to take a toll on it once again. Bermuda looks like it's away from any action now at this point. There may still be strong winds close by though, but certainly with the rainfall profile there's hardly any activity over there in Bermuda, and it is starting to move away slowly. Being sheared in a northeasterly direction there as well, so it is starting to look very, well, it's struggling clearly on that latest satellite imagery, with the convection displaced to the northeast, probably partially exposed now, and that trend is likely to continue for a little while until it eventually dissipates in maybe 2 or 3 days if it does well, but at the moment it's not looking so great. A partial radar view here looking out from Bermuda eastwards shows only very small amounts of rainfall affecting the island. Here's a wide shot of the Eastern Pacific because the floater isn't fully centered on the invest, and you can take a look at how it's looking there. It looks like it's got some decent rotation going on that geocolor imagery, but I imagine it's not properly stacked at this point, and so we're still waiting for this system to eventually form, and it looks like it will do so fairly soon. I still hold out hope that that will definitely happen. And towards the west there you can see that other little system as well starting to blow up some convection, still moderate chances on that one, but the main feature will be that eastern system, which could be a significant threat to Central America. Sea surface temperatures are decent in that area as well, above 28 degrees Celsius for the most part, and also for that secondary invest, so temperatures all along that coastline pushing close to 30 actually. The Caribbean Sea is an absolute hotspot for the Atlantic, and we know how wary we are for late season developments over there in the Caribbean Sea, and we could have one in the coming week, so well above 30 degrees Celsius still in quite a few spots there, and still warm temperatures even further north as well. Western Pacific still looking very warm in that main corridor down in the tropics there, up to 30 degrees and higher in the Philippine Sea and out eastwards in the deep tropics, and along the western coastlines of the Philippines as well into the South China Sea. In the Indian Ocean, the Bay of Bengal is looking good as well, could easily sustain another tropical cyclone with temperatures approaching 30 degrees in quite a few areas. The Arabian Sea a little bit cooler, but still generally decent. Southwest Indian Ocean up the coast of Madagascar really starting to take a turn upwards now. A few spots there of 28 degrees Celsius, and off the coast of Australia getting close to 30 degrees now off Darwin in the Northern Territory, really looking good. South Pacific, where Lola is, clearly below those temperatures, around about 22 degrees Celsius, so it's going to be no tropical threat, but further north those temperatures are increasing. Hotspots in the Western Pacific are in the South China Sea actually. In the Eastern Pacific it's mainly in the deep tropics, and in the Atlantic it's in the Caribbean. That's where the biggest departure is from the norm. In the South Indian Ocean it's mainly around Mauritius actually, where those warmer temperatures are compared to average, and it's Western Australia in the Australian region that's above average the most as well. South Pacific is pretty average there as well as we look at those images. Oceanic heat content is still sky high in the Caribbean, particularly in the central and western parts of the sub-basin, and in the Eastern Pacific it's almost dying off now, and in the Western Pacific fuel is starting to deplete in a few spots there as well, but still very much up there along the eastern coast of the Philippines, hotspot of the world for cyclone development. So computer models, I've circled Bermuda there as the storm Tammy moves away towards the east and then southeast. There's another low pressure system moving through there in the void where Tammy used to be, northwestwards at first and then dies off quite quickly. That could possibly be considered for a potential tropical cyclone formation. It's a quick one though and wouldn't last very long. And then look towards the Caribbean there for a potential third system maybe starting to form towards the end of that 5-day period. Eastern Pacific looks like this, and it's quite apparent where this tropical cyclone forms, and I've circled the other one on the left hand side as well that has a chance, but this significant system develops and it looks like that's a landfall in El Salvador and possibly Guatemala. Way towards the east of where we normally expect storms to strike, but the chances I would say are decreasing that we will see an Otis repeat or anything near that magnitude, and it looks like it will be a weaker storm, but certainly with rainfall in those areas it could still cause extreme damage. Western Pacific then, looking towards the end of that 5-day period, you might see one or two systems starting to try and form. There's a weak low pressure moving towards the Philippines at first, and then later on right towards the east, approaching the Mariana Islands. You start to see a storm approaching very much towards the end of that 5-day period as we enter the first days of November. There it is. And in the southern hemisphere, let's take a look at what Lola does next, and you can see there it becomes a large extratropical system feeding in with some other energy from a present low, and eventually reaches the North Island of New Zealand, but the wind shield really pushes on towards the south well ahead of the storm's arrival. So we're looking at there as soon as tomorrow or even later today, we could start to see storm force winds impacting the northern tip of New Zealand and then sweeping through the rest of the North Island, and then another cyclone extratropical forming off the South Island later on in that 5-day period. Well, let's take a look at the rainfall estimates for this area of interest in the Central American region, and looking at all of this rainfall piling in there from the west as this cyclone takes hold. And it actually, the hot spot there looks like it's not far from the capital of Nicaragua, and you can see those rainfall amounts reaching up to 25 inches possible in that region. Not far from the lake, and that would be up to around, trying to figure that out, over 600 millimeters of rainfall and 200 millimeters, 8 inches towards the north there as well, near the border with Nicaragua, Guatemala and onto El Salvador. Inland, quite a few areas of rainfall as well will be elevated, and along the northern coast of Honduras too. Well, let's take a look at the computer models for the longer range there, and I realized that I said Guatemala earlier. I did mean Honduras, but Guatemala could be impacted as well with some rainfall. But you can see that next system then, the one that initially impacts Central America, it comes back for round 2, moving then towards the west after stalling just offshore for a little bit, and then moving on and becoming a substantial hurricane, possibly for the second time there, moving westerly at first and then northwesterly. Western Pacific then, we start to see the development of this system. It looks like in the end it becomes a recurving typhoon and becomes quite a powerful one as well. Not quite Balavan levels, but it does sweep off towards the north and then northeast. So that's in the moderate range, day 5 to 10. Doesn't look like the Philippine Sea system gets much traction in that time, which is a difference from the previous GFS model runs, so I'd still watch out for that one just in case. That's all the serious stuff done though. You can check out the Force 13 merch store by scanning the barcode, and that will take you through. And you can take a look at all our products, including full season and individual storm animations, as well as our still waiting for Hone t-shirts, of which we've still seen no mention of. Well, into the silly range then, day 10 to 16, looking at the Atlantic, a brief spin-up tropical cyclone there off the Turks and Caicos Islands around the 8th of November, quickly evaporating though into a non-tropical low as it moves through Cuba. But nothing else on the radar there for the Atlantic by the looks of things, which I'm surprised about because I'm sure I saw a weak, fairly weak system moving on into Central America from the Caribbean, but it's actually not on that imagery, so I don't know what happened there, but I'm sure I did see that. Nonetheless, keep watching that system south of Jamaica. And eventually, looking into the Eastern Pacific, there's that re-intensification stage of that hurricane, and it really does go for quite a wander, and it looks like it finally dies out to the southwest of the Baja California Peninsula without impacting any other land areas. Also, there could be a brief spin up further east there in that period that you may have just seen there, and towards the west a few weak low pressure systems that probably won't become tropical cyclones during this period. And finally, in the Western Pacific, there's that typhoon moving off towards the northeast and eventually eastwards, and almost does a full loop actually, dipping southeastwards towards the end. Another weak system near Micronesia possibly, and then out of nowhere this storm that's moving on through towards the Philippines. There's that signature once again. We've been looking for model consistency for a storm striking the Philippines in the first 2 weeks of November, and that could be the hint. But I would still say there's quite a lot of uncertainty about that right now, and certainly nothing set in stone, that's for sure. But that indicating a tropical storm landfall there. You can join our Discord server to talk about all of this and more. Discord.gg/Force13 for tropical weather and general weather chat with thousands of members from all around the world. Well, on this day, 1985, and a really impressive but hardly fully tropical Hurricane Juan, which was about to make more than one landfall along the coast of the Gulf of the United States in Louisiana and near the coast of Texas as well. We also had Hurricane Nele, or Neil, I think it's Nele, that was to the southwest of Hawaii, and Zena, which was a tropical storm strengthening towards hurricane status in that very busy season in the Eastern Pacific. We also had Typhoon Faye near the Philippines at this point as well. Well, Juan was a significant impact in that year, but back to today, and the next name in the Atlantic is Vince, and serious danger of reaching the end of the naming list. In the Eastern Pacific, the next name is Pillar, and in the Central Pacific, of course, it is still Hone. 74 storms so far around the world. The next name in the Western Pacific is Jelawat, and in the North Indian Ocean, it's Midhili. Of course, the Southern Hemisphere will start to get more attention soon, and Lola was a bit of a crazy start for that area. But the next name in the Australian region is Jasper. Southwest Indian Ocean starts with Alvaro, and the South Pacific's next name is Mal. That's all from tonight's Tropical Weather Bulletin. We'll be back again tomorrow night.